Finding out your father has a secret family at the pediatrician's parking lot is like discovering you've been cast in a Lifetime movie without signing the release forms. There I was, Paige Monroe, 34, standing between my sensible Honda CR-V and reality as I knew it, clutching my daughter's antibiotic prescription like it might somehow protect me from what I was witnessing. My father, Dr. Sterling Monroe, respected cardiologist, pillar of the Lakeside, Connecticut community, and apparently champion of leading double lives, was exiting the maternity wing with all the stealth of someone who'd clearly forgotten his daughter regularly took her child to this exact medical center. I ducked behind a minivan, nearly knocking over a "Congratulations, it's a boy" balloon arrangement, which felt like the universe's particularly twisted sense of humor at work. My 6-year-old daughter Lily had been diagnosed with strep throat. Nothing serious, just annoying enough to warrant antibiotics and ice cream bribery. But this was terminal for our family as I knew it. "Mommy, why are we hiding?" Lily whispered, her little hand clutched in mine, blissfully unaware that we were witnessing the implosion of our family mythology in real time. "We're playing spy," I whispered back, thanking every parenting podcast I'd ever half listened to for preparing me to lie convincingly to my child. But we have to be super quiet. From my crouched position, I had a front row seat to my father tenderly placing a newborn, wrapped in the standard issue blue hospital blanket, into a car seat with the practiced precision that only comes from experience. The woman beside him was neither elderly nor unattractive, two details that somehow made this worse. She was maybe 38, with the kind of effortless beauty that made me instantly resentful, wearing designer athleisure that suggested she had both time and money. I recognized her immediately. Dahlia Wright, former star student of my mother's advanced literature seminar at Lakeside University. My mother, Estelle Monroe, PhD in English literature, had mentored Dahlia during her graduate studies. Mom had even invited her to our Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago, proudly introducing her as the most promising scholar I've encountered in decades. Apparently, she'd also been encountering my father, just not in academic settings. I snapped photos with trembling hands, my marketing executive brain already calculating the most strategic way to drop this nuclear bomb on my mother. Should I create a PowerPoint presentation? A carefully crafted email with exhibits A through Z? Perhaps a scrapbook titled "The Complete Idiot's Guide to Discovering Your Father's Secret Life"? The math was making me nauseous. My parents had been married for 35 years. My mother had suffered a stroke 2 years ago, right around the time Dad started working late at the hospital. Now here was Dahlia with a newborn, roughly 9 months after Dad's infamous fishing trip with the boys. A weekend excursion that had never before included actual fishing in their 3 decades of marriage. "Grandpa!" Lily suddenly shouted, bolting from behind our cover before I could grab her unicorn backpack. Time stopped. The universe froze. My father's head turned in slow motion, his face performing an Olympic-worthy routine from joy to shock to panic in under 2 seconds. "Lily Bear!" He recovered quickly, bending down to hug my daughter while shooting me a look that could only be translated as, "Please don't murder me in a public parking lot." I emerged from behind the minivan with all the dignity I could muster, which wasn't much considering I was wearing yesterday's mascara and holding a prescription for amoxicillin. "Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm. What a coincidence. Dahlia stood frozen beside the car, her hand protectively hovering near the baby. She looked terrified, which gave me a small surge of satisfaction. "Paige," my father started, his authoritative cardiologist voice failing him. "This is Dahlia Wright," I finished for him. "Mom's former student, though I'm guessing she's learning different subjects these days." My father blanched. Dahlia looked like she might faint. "Who's the baby?" Lily asked innocently, peering into the car seat. The silence that followed was so thick you could have performed surgery on it. That's James," my father finally said, defeat evident in his voice. "James Monroe," I stated rather than asked. "As in, sharing your last name? How very presidential of you, Dad." Lily, bless her oblivious heart, was already making silly faces at baby James. completely unaware she was meeting her uncle who was approximately 28 years younger than her. "Paige, please, let me explain," my father pleaded, walking a few steps away from Dahlia and the baby. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "Oh, really? You had a PowerPoint prepared? Perhaps a family announcement at Christmas? Pass the turkey and meet my secret son?" "It's complicated," he whispered urgently. "Complicated as trying to find parking at Whole Foods on a Sunday," I hissed back. "This is catastrophic. Does Mom know?" The look on his face answered that question. "How could you?" I demanded, keeping my voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "After everything Mom has been through with the stroke? While she was recovering?" "It wasn't planned," he said, running his hand through his silver hair. The same gesture he'd make when explaining why he couldn't make it to my college graduation because of an emergency surgery. I was starting to wonder how many of those emergencies had involved Dahlia. I'm sure the baby just materialized spontaneously. Immaculate conception? Is that what they're teaching at medical school these days? "Mommy, can I hold the baby?" Lily called over, already bonding with her surprise relative. "Not today, sweetie," I replied, my customer service voice firmly in place. I turned back to my father, decades of respect and admiration crumbling like the cookies Mom still baked for him every Sunday. "You have exactly 24 hours to tell Mom, or I will. And trust me, my version won't include any extenuating circumstances. Paige, please. 24 hours, Dad." And I'd start with an apology for missing her department's holiday party next week, because you won't be welcome. I collected Lily, who protested leaving her new friend, and buckled her into my car with shaking hands. As I drove away, I watched in my rearview mirror as my father stood in the parking lot, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Who was that lady with Grandpa?" Lily asked, already focused on the ice cream I'd promised her. "Someone who's about to learn that hell hath no fury like the Monroe women scorned," I replied, already drafting a group text to my sisters, Marin and Tessa. By the time we reached the Walgreens drive-thru to fill Lily's prescription, I had 17 missed calls from my father and a growing sense that Christmas was going to be anything but merry this year. There's nothing quite like driving home from discovering your father's secret family and having to explain to your 6-year-old why ice cream isn't an acceptable dinner substitute, even during family apocalypses. The 24 hours following my parking lot revelation unfolded like some twisted Hallmark movie, where someone replaced the scriptwriter with a vengeful divorce attorney. By the time I'd tucked Lily into bed that night, after 3 stories and her customary inspection for closet monsters, I'd received no fewer than 27 texts and 14 voicemails from my father. The digital desperation was almost impressive. "Paige, please, I can explain everything," read the first text, followed by increasingly frantic messages including gems like, "This isn't what it looks like," the mating call of the caught-in-the-act American male, and "Please don't tell your mother," as if I'd scheduled a PowerPoint presentation for breakfast. I silenced my phone and opened a bottle of Pinot Noir that had been earmarked for special occasions. Finding out your father has been playing Family Man. The sequel certainly qualified. By morning, I'd formulated a battle plan. Step 1, Emergency Sister Summit. I called Marin, 38, the middle sister and corporate attorney whose office wall proudly displayed her most likely to make opposing counsel cry award from her law firm. "He did what?" Marin's voice hit a pitch that probably shattered nearby glassware. I held the phone away from my ear while pouring Lily's Cheerios. "You heard me. Dad, Dahlia, baby, maternity ward, the works. That spineless, pathetic..." Marin launched into a creative string of legal jargon that, while technically clean enough for a courtroom, conveyed sentiments that would make a sailor blush. "Lily's in earshot," I warned, watching my daughter meticulously arrange her Cheerios in alphabetical order, a quirk she'd definitely inherited from my side of the family. "Sorry," Marin lowered her voice. "Have you told Tessa?" Tessa, 32, our youngest sister and elementary school counselor, was ironically the least equipped to counsel anyone through this particular family crisis. "Not yet. I figured we'd divide and conquer. You call Tessa, I'll deal with Mom." "Deal with Mom? Paige, this isn't a broken dishwasher. This is Dad having a..." She dropped to a whisper. "A secret baby." "I'm aware, thanks. I had front row seats to the reveal." The silence that followed was heavy with 30-plus years of shared history. Dad teaching us to ride bikes, checking under our beds for monsters, walking each of us down the aisle at our weddings. The same man who now couldn't even walk the line of basic marital fidelity. He has until 3 p.m., I said firmly. Then I'm telling Mom. That's generous, Marin replied. I'd have given him the time it takes to say paternity test. After hanging up, I dropped Lily at school, then drove to my marketing firm's office building in downtown Lakeside, Connecticut, where I proceeded to stare blankly at spreadsheets while composing and deleting 17 different versions of a text to my mother. Each attempt veered wildly between clinical detachment, Mom, I need to inform you of a significant development, and dramatic accusation. Your husband of 35 years is a lying cheater with a secret love child. At 2:55 p.m., my phone rang. Mom's smiling face lighting up my screen. Hi, sweetie. Estelle Monroe's voice sounded normal, if slightly distracted. Just checking if you're bringing that spinach dip to the department holiday party on Saturday? The one with the water chestnuts that Dean Harlow loved last year? Water chestnuts. She was worried about water chestnuts while her marriage was imploding in slow motion 5 miles away. Mom, I began carefully, have you talked to Dad today? Not since breakfast. He had an early surgery, then some meeting at the hospital about the new cardiac wing. Why? Is everything okay with Lily? The cardiac wing. Right. Unless cardiac wing was code for my secret second family. Lily's fine. Just call me after you talk to Dad, okay? You're being mysterious, Paige. You know I don't like mysteries unless they're written by Agatha Christie. At 3:32 p.m., while I was in a meeting about Q1 marketing strategies that suddenly seemed absurdly trivial, my phone exploded with notifications. First from Marin. DEFCON 1. Mom called me hysterical. Dad told her. Then from Tessa. OMG, Dad? Mom just called me crying. WTF, Paige. Why didn't you tell me first? And finally, the text that made my stomach drop. Your father won't be at Christmas. Or in this house. Ever again. Come for dinner tonight. Bring Lily. I need to see my granddaughter. And bring wine. All of it. Mom. I left work claiming a family emergency, which for once wasn't even a lie. The scene at my childhood home that evening was surreal. Mom, the pillar of composure who'd once calmly removed a bat from the living room while continuing to grade papers, sat at the kitchen island wearing her bathrobe at 6 p.m., surrounded by photo albums. I'm removing him, she announced as I entered, scissors in hand, methodically cutting my father's face out of their wedding portrait. 35 years, and I never once suspected. Not even when he started bringing home those ridiculous fishing trophies. Sterling Monroe has never caught a fish in his life. He gets seasick on the Staten Island ferry. Lily ran to her grandmother, oblivious to the marital massacre underway at the kitchen counter. Grandma, why are you cutting pictures? She asked, peering at the growing pile of severed sterling heads. I'm making a collage, sweetheart, Mom replied without missing a beat. A special project called Lying Liars Who Lie. Marin arrived with 3 bottles of wine and a folder labeled Divorce Scorched Earth Edition in her precise handwriting. Tessa followed shortly after with 4 pints of ice cream and her therapy dog, a situation which immediately diverted Lily's attention. What's happening? Tessa whispered, her counselor training utterly failing her in the face of actual family trauma. What's happening? Mom announced, pouring wine into a coffee mug that read, World's Best Wife. The irony was not lost on anyone. Is that your father has been living a double life while I've been building our retirement portfolio and making his favorite lasagna every Thursday for 3 decades. Did you know? She continued with unsettling calm. That Dahlia Wright has published more papers than me this year? She's been juggling academia and an affair with my husband, and a pregnancy. Meanwhile, I felt guilty for ordering takeout when I was too tired to cook. She raised her mug in a toast. Here's to the overachieving other woman. May she enjoy explaining to little James why his father only visits on alternating weekends. As Lily played with the therapy dog in the living room, safely out of earshot, we sisters exchanged glances that communicated decades of shared understanding. Dad had messed up in spectacular fashion, but Mom, brilliant, formidable Estelle Monroe, was going to survive this. and we were going to make absolutely certain that Sterling Monroe regretted the day he ever thought he could get away with betraying her. "So," Mom said, closing the mutilated wedding album with a decisive thud, "who's going to help me change the locks? They say revenge is a dish best served cold. In my family, we prefer it served with a side of irrefutable evidence and a garnish of public humiliation." The weekend after the Great Monroe family implosion, TM, brought a shift in strategy. While Mom was busy consulting with her attorney, coincidentally, a former student who specialized in divorcing cheating spouses, I did what any self-respecting marketing executive would do: research. My target? Dahlia Wright's social media footprint, which was surprisingly extensive for someone maintaining a secret relationship with a married cardiologist. Either she wasn't worried about being discovered, or my father had convinced her that his marriage was basically over. The battle cry of unfaithful husbands since the dawn of Facebook relationship statuses. "Are you hate-stalking Dad's girlfriend again?" Marin asked, letting herself into my house Sunday afternoon with her laptop and a bottle of wine, despite it being barely past noon. She found me cross-legged on my couch, surrounded by printed screenshots and a timeline I'd meticulously constructed on my living room wall like a detective in a crime procedural. "It's not hate-stalking," I corrected, accepting the wine glass she handed me. "It's opposition research." Lily was at a play date, giving us adults a few precious hours to strategize without explaining why Grandpa wasn't answering her FaceTime calls anymore. "Well, your opposition research is about to get a massive upgrade," Marin said, opening her laptop. "You know how Dad always used the same password for everything despite my warnings about basic cybersecurity?" I nodded. Sterling Monroe, brilliant cardiologist who could recite complex medical terminology in his sleep, used Cardiac King 62 for everything from his Netflix account to his medical practice portal. "I may have logged into his cloud storage," Marin continued, her expression suspended between professional guilt and sisterly vindication. "You did what?" I gasped, equal parts shocked and impressed. "Isn't that highly unethical for an attorney?" "Probably," she shrugged. "But I'm not acting as an attorney right now. I'm acting as a daughter whose father betrayed her mother while she was recovering from a stroke. Ethics took the day off." What Marin had discovered was the digital equivalent of finding Jimmy Hoffa. Emails, calendar entries, photos, financial records. For a man having an affair, my father had been remarkably thorough in documenting his deception. Perhaps the most damning was a shared digital calendar between him and Dahlia, color-coded for their meetups, with helpful notes like, "Tell Estelle Hospital fundraiser," or "Estelle at academic conference," "Weekend at Lake House." He bought a lake house? I nearly spilled my wine. "In whose name?" Marin's smile was downright predatory. "That's where it gets interesting. He purchased it through an LLC registered solely in his name. Mom's name isn't on it. And he's been moving money, not huge amounts but consistent transfers, into a separate account for the past 2 years. Since Mom's stroke," I said flatly. "Since Mom's stroke," Marin confirmed. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Dad just called me crying. Says we're not being fair. Should I feel bad? Because I kind of do." Tessa, the family empath, was struggling with maintaining righteous anger in the face of paternal tears. I showed the message to Marin, who rolled her eyes with the precision of someone who cross-examined people for a living. "Tell her to remember how Mom looked cutting his face out of photos while wearing her bathrobe at dinner time," Marin suggested, scrolling through more financial records. That should firm up her resolve. The real bombshell dropped when Mom called later that afternoon. "I just had the most fascinating conversation with Janet Blackwood," she said without preamble. Janet was the department secretary who had worked at the university for over 30 years and knew everyone's business before they did. "Apparently," Mom continued, her voice eerily calm, "Dahlia is being considered for my position next fall. The position I was planning to retire from in 3 years. The position your father specifically suggested she apply for, while assuring me I shouldn't worry about retirement planning because he had it covered." The implications were staggering. My father hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been orchestrating a complete life replacement. New woman, new baby, same career department, all while siphoning money away from his legitimate family. Mom, are you okay? I asked, genuinely concerned about her blood pressure. Oh, I'm magnificent, she replied with a chilling cheerfulness. In fact, I've never seen things more clearly. Your father didn't just betray me with his body, he betrayed me with his entire future. He was planning to pension me off to some retirement community while setting up Dahlia in my job and my life. What are you going to do? I asked, already dreading the answer. Well, first I'm going to call the university president, who happens to be my racquetball partner. Then I'm going to contact the board of the hospital where your father has privileges. And then, she paused dramatically, I'm going to need you girls to help me plan something special. That something special turned out to be an appearance at the hospital's annual Christmas charity gala the following weekend, an event my father was chairing and where he would be receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, an event we all had tickets to, and where the hospital's biggest donors, the university's leadership, and essentially everyone who mattered in our social circle would be gathered in their holiday finest. You're not suggesting, I began. Oh, but I am, Mom interrupted. If Sterling wants to live a double life, then he should be prepared to have both halves collide spectacularly, in public, in formal wear. When I relayed this conversation to Marin, she was silent for a long moment before a slow smile spread across her face. Mom has gone full scorched earth, she said with unmistakable pride. Dad won't know what hit him. The next week was a flurry of preparation. Mom, seemingly resurrected from her bathrobe depression, transformed into a tactical commander. Marin compiled financial evidence into what she called exhibits of betrayal. I created a private social media group for coordinating our movements. Even Tessa, after a pep talk from her therapist about healthy anger, volunteered to handle emotional logistics, primarily making sure Lily and any other children would be safely occupied elsewhere during what we were now referring to as Operation Cardiac Arrest. Meanwhile, my father's texts grew increasingly desperate as he realized none of us would be persuaded to advocate for him. Your mother is making rash decisions, he wrote. We need to talk like adults before permanent damage is done to this family. Interesting perspective from the man who created a second family while his wife was recovering from a stroke, I replied before blocking his number. By Friday night, our plans were set, our dresses were pressed, and the Monroe women were armed with enough evidence to sink a battleship, or in this case, one philandering cardiologist who was about to discover that hell hath no fury like a family of educated women with access to digital records and a thirst for justice. Tomorrow night, Mom said during our final strategy call, Sterling Monroe learns that some hearts can't be repaired, even by the best cardiologist in Connecticut. Some women dream of their wedding day. I never expected to dream about my father's professional execution at a Christmas gala. Yet here we were, approaching the hospital ballroom like four horsewomen of the apocalypse in cocktail attire. The Lakeside Memorial Hospital Annual Christmas Charity Gala transformed the normally sterile hospital atrium into a winter wonderland of crystal decorations, white poinsettias, and enough champagne to anesthetize the entire cardiology department. Mom had chosen a stunning crimson gown, the color of the blood Sterling will metaphorically spill tonight, as she put it, while Marin, Tessa, and I coordinated in black, like the world's most fashionable funeral procession. We arrived fashionably late, ensuring Sterling would already be working the room, greeting donors and accepting premature congratulations for his Lifetime Achievement Award. The plan was simple yet devastating. Make our presence known, wait for the perfect moment during his acceptance speech, and then unleash 35 years of receipts in spectacular fashion. There he is, Tessa whispered, nodding toward the far corner where our father stood resplendent in a tuxedo, laughing with the hospital board chairman. He looks happy. Not for long, Marin muttered, patting her clutch, which contained what she called the nuclear codes, a USB drive with meticulously organized evidence of his double life. The moment Sterling spotted us, his champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. The color drained from his face so quickly I worried he might become a patient in his own hospital. We smiled and waved with the synchronized precision of pageant contestants. "Ladies, you came!" He recovered quickly, hurrying over with practiced charm. "I wasn't sure if—" If we'd miss your big night? Mom interrupted, her smile dazzling and terrifying. Wouldn't dream of it, Sterling. 35 years of supporting your career. Why stop now? The hospital board chairman, oblivious to the undercurrents, beamed at us. The Monroe women, all together. Sterling, you're a lucky man. Indeed, my father replied tightly, his eyes darting nervously between us. If you'll excuse us for a moment. He attempted to guide Mom away, but she stood firm, her smile never wavering. Actually, I should mingle. So many faculty colleagues here tonight. Sterling, you remember Janet from the department, don't you? I invited her specially. Mom floated away toward the university contingent, leaving my father looking like he'd swallowed his stethoscope. Marin and Tessa dispersed strategically through the crowd, leaving me alone with Dad. Paige, he began, desperation edging his voice. Please tell me you're not planning anything disruptive tonight. This award is the culmination of my career. Interesting choice of words, I replied, sipping champagne. Culmination, ending, finale. All very appropriate, wouldn't you say? This vendetta is completely disproportionate, he hissed, maintaining his smile as a donor couple waved from across the room. People make mistakes. A mistake is ordering chicken when you meant to order fish, I countered pleasantly. Setting up a second family while your wife recovers from a stroke is a deliberate series of choices, made daily for years. But please continue explaining how we're overreacting. Before he could respond, the hospital's PR director clinked a glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin momentarily. I patted my father's arm. Break a leg up there, Dad. Actually, break both. It'll save you the trouble of running away later. We had strategically reserved a table directly in front of the podium, ensuring perfect sightlines for what was about to unfold. Mom sat directly in my father's line of vision, her posture regal, her smile serene. If you didn't know her, you'd never suspect she was calculating the precise angle at which to hurl his career into the abyss. The first half of the program proceeded normally. Acknowledgements, charity auction results, donor recognition. Then came the main event, Dr. Sterling Monroe's Lifetime Achievement Award for Cardiovascular Excellence. And now, announced the Chief of Surgery, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our honoree. Dr. Sterling Monroe has been a pillar of this institution for 30 years, saving countless lives with his innovative techniques and steady hands. A family man whose dedication to his patients is matched only by his commitment to his loving wife Estelle and their 3 accomplished daughters. I caught Marin's eye across the table. She nodded almost imperceptibly and typed something on her phone. Seconds later, the massive screen behind the stage, intended for Sterling's career highlight slideshow, flickered briefly. My father approached the podium to thunderous applause, clutching his Crystal Heart trophy with apparent humility. Thank you, everyone. This recognition means everything to me. They say behind every successful man is a supportive wife, and I've been blessed with the best. That's when the screen behind him changed from the hospital logo to a meticulously organized timeline titled The Double Life of Dr. Sterling Monroe, complete with photographs, text messages, and financial records. The audience gasped collectively as my father, oblivious to the changing display, continued his speech. Family has always been my foundation, my reason for striving for excellence. Which family? Called out a woman's voice. Not ours, but Janet Blackwood's, who had positioned herself near the back. The one with Estelle, or the one with Dahlia? Sterling whirled around, finally seeing the damning evidence projected 20 feet high behind him. His face contorted in horror as he recognized his own text messages, calendar entries, and most devastating of all, photos of him with Dahlia and baby James leaving the maternity ward. There's been some misunderstanding, he stammered, but the damage was done. The audience had fallen into a stunned silence broken only by whispers and the occasional phone camera click. Mom chose this moment to rise, gliding toward the stage like a crimson-clad avenging angel. Sterling, darling, you forgot to mention your newest achievement, fathering a child with my former student while I recovered from a stroke. Quite the medical miracle, wouldn't you say? Perhaps that deserves a special award. The hospital board chairman, now ghostly pale, hurried to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. If we could just take a short break." "Oh, but we're just getting to the good part," Mom continued, unstoppable. "The part where my husband of 35 years secretly purchased property for his mistress using hospital compensation committee funds." "That is correct, isn't it, Board Chairman Phillips? The special discretionary account for retaining top talent?" "Very discreet, except my daughter is quite skilled at following money trails." Chaos erupted. Board members huddled in emergency consultation, their expressions oscillating between shock and damage control calculation. Sterling's medical colleagues divided instantly, the older surgeons looking appalled at the public spectacle, while younger doctors whispered with barely concealed fascination. Hospital donors in evening wear shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some already reaching for their phones, undoubtedly removing pledged donations in real time. The PR director frantically signaled for the technical team to cut the projection. My father stood frozen at the podium, career and reputation disintegrating in real time. The chief of surgery attempted damage control, guiding Sterling away from the podium while security discreetly approached our table. But they were intercepted by the university president, who put a protective arm around Mom's shoulders. "Estelle is a valued member of our faculty," he announced loudly, "and apparently the victim of some very disturbing behavior. I suggest we all take a breath before anyone does anything rash." As the gala dissolved into factions, those demanding explanations, those pretending nothing had happened, and those openly recording the debacle for posterity, Dad finally located his voice. "This is a private family matter that has no place in a professional setting," he declared, physician authority failing him for perhaps the first time. "My personal life has no bearing on my medical contributions." "Funny," Marin replied, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "That's exactly what the hospital ethics committee said when I called them yesterday. They were quite interested in reviewing your case, particularly the part where you billed couples counseling sessions with Dahlia to the hospital's continuing education fund." By the time we left, Sterling Monroe, once the crown jewel of Lakeside Memorial, had been quietly escorted to his car by security. His Crystal Heart Award left abandoned on the podium like the shattered remnants of his reputation. "Was it everything you hoped for?" Tessa asked Mom as we walked to our cars, snow beginning to fall gently around us. Mom looked up at the night sky, snowflakes catching on her eyelashes. "No," she said thoughtfully, "but it was everything he deserved. They say living well is the best revenge. Turns out, publicly dismantling your cheating father's career while wearing designer heels is a close second." 6 months after the Christmas charity gala that will forever be known in Lakeside medical circles as the Monroe Massacre, life had found a new rhythm, one with significantly less betrayal and surprisingly more joy. Spring had bloomed across Connecticut, bringing with it not just flowers and warmer temperatures, but the kind of renewal that only comes after a particularly satisfying demolition. Like many beautiful gardens, our family had required substantial pruning before new growth could begin. Mom sold the family home within weeks of the gala. "Too many ghosts and not enough closet space," she explained, and purchased a sleek downtown condo walking distance from the university. The Monroe women helped her move on a sunny Saturday, unpacking books and artwork that somehow looked more vibrant in her new space, unburdened by the weight of my father's deception. "Do you miss it?" I asked as we arranged her beloved first edition novels on custom bookshelves. "The house, I mean." "I miss what? The creaking stairs that Sterling refused to fix? The kitchen where I cooked 14,000 meals for a man who was dining elsewhere? The bedroom where I slept alone while he was building a lake house for his child bride?" Mom replied, arching an eyebrow. Strangely, no. Sterling Monroe's fall from grace had been swift and comprehensive. The ethics investigation revealed financial improprieties extending beyond what even we had discovered. His hospital privileges were suspended, his private practice partners bought him out for pennies on the dollar, and his medical license was placed under review. Last we heard, he'd moved into the lake house with Dahlia and baby James, living on rapidly dwindling savings while updating his resume. "He called me yesterday," Tessa mentioned during our monthly sister dinner at Marin's house. "Wanted to know if I could put in a good word with Mom about reducing her alimony demands. Maren nearly spat out her wine. The audacity of that man continues to impress me. What did you say? I told him I'd be happy to relay the message right after he explained to Lily why Grandpa disappeared and had a brand new baby with a woman half his age, Tessa replied, helping herself to more pasta. Her therapy training had finally found its perfect application in setting boundaries with our father. As for Mom, the Estelle Monroe Revenge Tour had evolved into something far more powerful, the Estelle Monroe Renaissance. Rather than retiring as planned, she accepted a distinguished professorship and published a searing academic paper on betrayal narratives in contemporary American marriages that became the English department's most downloaded publication in history. I've been invited to speak at 4 conferences this summer, she announced during Sunday brunch, looking younger than she had in years. Apparently, there's significant academic interest in how women reclaim their narratives after betrayal. Who knew Dad would finally contribute to your academic career? I quipped. Yes, he's finally useful as a cautionary tale, Mom replied, buttering her toast with the precision of a surgeon. Though I've changed his name in my case studies to protect the guilty from further humiliation. Speaking of humiliation, Maren chimed in, scrolling through her phone. Dahlia withdrew her candidacy for Mom's eventual position. Apparently, dating the disgraced former star of the medical school doesn't do much for one's academic credibility. Life lessons had emerged from the wreckage of our family mythology. Chief among them the realization that people rarely show you who they truly are, until circumstances force their hand. My father had maintained his respected doctor, devoted family man persona for decades, only to reveal himself as spectacularly selfish when tested by my mother's illness. But the most important lesson came from watching Mom rebuild. She approached her reinvention with the same methodical brilliance she'd applied to her revenge, carefully assessing what she wanted, strategizing how to get it, and executing her plan with precision. The woman who once built her life around my father's career now traveled to academic conferences alone, started a book club for divorced professionals, and even went on what she euphemistically called dinner appointments with male colleagues. As for me, Lily continued to ask occasionally about Grandpa, but with decreasing frequency as new priorities filled her 6-year-old world. I explained, in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people, and that it's okay to be sad about losing someone while also being angry at their actions. Like when Tyler pushed me off the swing but then said he was sorry? She'd asked, reducing complex adult betrayal to playground physics. Something like that, sweetie. Only Grandpa hasn't said he's sorry yet. The baby, James, now exactly 6 months and 2 weeks old, remained an innocent complication. None of us had met him, though Sterling sent photos occasionally in transparent attempts to soften our stance. He was, undeniably, a Monroe, with the same cowlick that all 3 sisters had battled in childhood. Maybe someday, Mom said, when I asked if she'd ever want to meet her husband's child. When the rage subsides to a gentle simmer rather than a rolling boil. That was the thing about family betrayals. They never fully healed, but eventually the edges softened enough to handle without cutting yourself open again. And sometimes, if you were lucky, you emerged from the experience with a better understanding of your own strength, and the knowledge that the family you choose to keep around you is far more important than the one you were given. And in the end, isn't that the most satisfying revenge of all?